So, welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got the awesome Bill Browne with me today, and I was chatting with Bill a little bit before we started rolling, and we were talking a little bit about, how you asked how I was doing, and I asked how he was doing. And one of the things that I started talking about was just, um, I had reached out to him a week or so ago about, again, chatting, and he asked me again how I was doing, and I was having a tough time. And, you know, I went to the US with my wife and we visited my mom. And I've been stuck in this limbo trying to figure out, a kind of a career shift. I've been trying to build the stuff that I'm building. I have a couple different brands that I'm building. I have my podcasts, I have my daughter's brand and my wife's brand. My wife's brand has been the thing that's been making us money these years. That I when we had our daughter, I kind of stepped back from my career proper and just made videos for my family. And it was great for a while, and then we hit kind of this post 2020 lull as everything kind of went crazy, and it's been picking back up for her, but it's been challenging. And one of the challenges for me is that I've at times felt adrift. I remember reading uh, when I was younger about great explorers, and when the people were starting to sail around the world, there was an interesting phenomenon they came across: the doldrums. And the doldrums were this great expanse of ocean where no wind blew, and or they would have long periods of time with no wind, and sailors would get stuck there. There was a great Russell Crowe movie where they talk about that. There's a scene where they're all stuck in the doldrums, and it was Master and Commander, absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal movie. And there was this one scene where they're just stuck there for days, and people were starting to doubt everything. And that's kind of been, I had reached out because I have a hard time at times kind of keeping the faith, kind of keeping the the direction I'm going. And I'll turn on LinkedIn, and I'm not gonna lie, LinkedIn, Instagram, any of the social media, it overwhelms me at half the time because I see all these people on there that are like, this is the formula for success. You have to do this, and then you're gonna get this, and this. You got a comment back here. I start doing it, and I'll be doing okay, and then I'll just hit this wall, and I'm like, I don't feel okay. I don't feel like I want to be going and putting this all out there. And there's days where I'm feeling great. There's days where I'm not. And I think that it's really hard to kind of be honest to myself in this digital world that we're surrounded by. I'm surrounded by Instagram is what it is. TikTok is what it is. But like, as I try to build my business, I leaned in on LinkedIn more, and LinkedIn was like borderline toxic with all of the positivity, and I'm not hating on positivity. I try to bring positivity to the world, but it's like, I feel like everyone on there is like, everything's okay. It's like, it might be a dumpster fire around you, but you're like, everything's okay. And sometimes it's not okay. And I wanted to throw that out there with you and just discuss with you and hear your perspective on that, because it sounds like things, you've been dealing with your own stuff at the same time. So I'd love to hear your perspective, brother.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's lots of things I can relate to there. Before I started my coaching business, which is about a year ago now, I had little or nothing to do with any social media. I had an Instagram account that I quit out of 4 or 5 years before last year. Did have a LinkedIn profile because it was linked to my career before becoming a coach, but dipped into it a bit. No Facebook, no TikTok, no Twitter, none of it. Didn't have anything to do with it and didn't want anything to do with it. Just didn't interest me. I wasn't bothered what other people were doing, and unless I wanted to know what they were doing, then I would call them or go and see them, or share a one-to-one message with them. That's how I wanted to engage with them. And it's really interesting you say that, Sean, because I've embraced that as part of starting my business, because this day and age, Well, you don't have to, but it'd be remiss not to have a social presence, because your potential customers want to know who you are, and you've got to be in places where they can access that. And social, as we know, is just ingrained to it. Well, it's a key element of life now, isn't it? Like it or not, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can totally relate with what you're saying, because I honestly think the more I've engaged with it, because like you, I've read plenty about this is the way you should approach it, consistency in posting at the same time, um, interact with your connections for a certain amount of period before post, all this stuff. There's 101 LinkedIn gurus out there telling you the same things. So you sit there and you're right, you put this pressure on yourself, right? Well, I better post 3 or 4 times a week. I better be on there for 30 minutes beforehand. I better be there for 30 minutes after at least. Otherwise, it's going to be a wasted post. And what started as this like, oh, let's just put up how I feel and go with it and be creative. Suddenly, like, man, this is starting to be quite painful. Like, this is not what I want to be doing. I don't want to be a slave to this thing. I want to use it for what it is and engage with it. And, I get that I'm getting it for free, and that comes at a price, because, if you're not paying for it, then you're the product and all that. But yeah, it's hit me as well. And I must admit, the last few weeks, and I'm still thinking on this, I've just started being more open with what I've posted. I've put ridiculous videos up of daft stuff because I wanted to. I've put really open and honest stuff as well, because I totally agree with you. There's so much stuff on there about, here's the 3 ways that you can improve your sales in the next 90 days. And it's like, man, that's all good, right? Don't dismiss that stuff if that's what you're trying to do, but take it all with a pinch of salt. That's based on their reality, their circumstances, their abilities, their values. It's not you. So might work for you, probably won't work for you. Use it as inspiration, and that's it. But then walk away from it and take nothing else from it. Because it can be relentless looking at people, perfect pictures, perfect scenarios. I get bombarded as a coach. Honestly, I don't know about you, but I get DMs all the time. I'll take you to 10K a month. I'll take you to 10K a month in the next 60 days. Firstly, how do they know I want 10K a month? That's got, I don't know where this number came from. My wife goes mad because I'm always going on about, I've got another one. That's my first, because when you train to be a coach, what's drilled into you quite rightly is you have to remove yourself from the process. It's about the person who wants to be coached. It's about their world. It's about how they see things. It's about what they value. You're nothing to do with it, really. You're purely there as someone to accompany them as they think about the things they want to think about. And you've got to take all your ideas and your thoughts and your opinions out, because success to me will look completely different to what success is to you. Happiness to me will look different. And you can't go into those sessions based on your frame of view. You've got to go in there and explore with that person to help them understand what it means to them. So I think that's what really gets me with social now is, you don't know me. You don't know what I want. You don't know what I value. Yet you feel like you can tell me all the things I'm doing wrong. Well, no. And that's where I'm at the moment. It's reminding myself what my values are. It's evidencing them the way I want to evidence them towards what I want. And you know what? If I'm doing that, then to hell with the rest of it. Let's just leave it. It is what it is, and we just move on. That's my view on it.
Yes, that was kind of where I've gotten to. I had this whole idea of like the things I want to build and this and that, and with my podcast, I will get these spam messages on LinkedIn. They're like, you look like a candidate for what we have to offer, and I give them credit for the sales pitch. I give them credit for all that, but at the same time, like, I think that there is this trying to figure out how to say it. there's this part of the hustle culture right now is this idea of crushing it to get ahead, crushing it to get ahead, and it's kind of the same kind of idea of the and God knows I would love to get ahead, whatever that might mean for me. Whether that mean that I can deal with this financial thing that I would like to be on the other side of, whether it be, I have this, nest egg set aside for my daughter, whether it be that I transition away from this job that I've been in a long time and into this, that is something that I'd like to build. Certainly there are things that I'd like to accomplish, but this idea that it has to look a certain way. There's this great book that I passed by, um, today in my hallway that I haven't finished it, and it's by Ryan Holiday, and I love Ryan Holiday's work. His stuff with
Yes.
the obstacles, the way. Well, this one is success through stillness, or stillness through something like that. It's something about stillness.
Hmm.
It is one of the things too that um, you ever read the book Siddhartha by
No,
Hermann Hesse?
no.
Great book. Great book, and it talks about this journey of this of Siddhartha, and it was, loosely an analogy of the life of the Buddha, but it's not. It's Hermann Hesse's approach to this character that is, this enlightened person throughout. It becomes enlightened, but the story follows this character who goes from spiritual to secular to spiritual, and this character just goes back and forth on this spectrum of this way, and when I was younger, I was very big into Eastern philosophy. That was what actually brought me to Southeast Asia. I studied history in university, but then I moved into Eastern philosophy in school. I had this great professor, Andrew Wheat, and he was turning all of me and my little classmates into heathens, which was awesome. Through all these awesome books he was teaching us, and he finally got so kind of unceremoniously removed from this Christian university, but he just blew my mind open by showing me all of these really interesting, books that were, full of this amazing knowledge. And one of my favorite things to study was Taoism, and some of the great, and then the Taoist kind of tradition followed into Chan Buddhism, which became Zen. And the idea of some of these philosophies, you would get this. There would be these great stories where there'd be one question. They had the idea of the koan. The koan was a way to understand the nature of the universe, and this was how people kind of would practice their Buddhism, with through these like little riddles of sorts. Like, what is the Buddha? And then that person would respond, the three-legged donkey running down the hill. And then, or there would be another story about these different students were given a bowl, like a rice ball, and one person um, ate it, and the teacher was like, "You do not understand the way." And the next person sat there and put it on his head. You also don't understand the way. And the next person like started quacking like a duck and going in circles. And the teacher's like, you understand the nature of the universe. And I'm sitting there reading, like, what the hell? What the hell is that, man? Where's a three-legged donkey running down the hill? It was essentially just like the whole idea was of your own unique experience in this world. Like, if you're sitting there asking, what is the nature of this or that? And there's a three-legged donkey running down the hill. That's interesting. Like, pay attention to that. That is something that is special that you might only see once in your life, it literally is that idea of being in this present moment and being there for whatever's coming along. And that's one of the things that I have to work at for myself, is to kind of remove some of these expectations that are placed on me, whether that be from outside or things I place on myself, and to remember that the most important thing that I can do for my family is to be present. To be present for my wife, to be present with my daughter. Of course, God knows I would like to be making more money. more this, more successful, more views on our videos so that we have an easier time. But that doesn't help me if I'm not present. If I'm not present in the struggle, present in the success, present in whatever it is that we're going through. And not just present, but authentically present, to be vulnerable, to be real, and to just be where I'm at.
It's tough, isn't it? How do you plan to cultivate that presence, Sean?
How do you cultivate that? That is a good question. Like, there's this other, like, I have a tattoo on my back of something called the Inso, which is another Japanese Buddhist thing. It was done by the monks in Japan. And essentially, the idea was that they would paint a brush stroke, paint a circle. What's more perfect than a circle? If you look at pi, 3.14, blah, 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 it goes on forever. It's essentially an infinite number. And, and the crazy thing is like, if you converted that into some type of computer code, every single possible scenario situation is inside the number pi. So it's this absolutely perfect, like, simulation of the universe, right? And yet we can't draw a circle, no matter how much you try, no matter how good you get. Painting a circle is pretty much impossible, and yet we should strive to do it. And so that was one of the things the monks would do, is that one of the things that Buddhist monks would do would be to practice painting a circle, knowing that they could never fully achieve it, but yet recognizing that every single time they did it, it was perfect. And yet they would still try to be better. I'm a huge fan of Admiral William McRaven, and I've been reading his newest book. I don't know the name of it, but it's not the one, Time to Make Your Bed, but it's his other new book. And he's got this one chapter that I read today on duty. And he talks about how, uh, if you haven't read anything by Admiral William McRaven, look him up. His stuff is phenomenal. He was the former leader of the Navy SEALs, a high-level officer, and then led all of the U.S. Special Forces, and just such an amazing man. Like, his writing is phenomenal, and what he accomplished in his life was pretty amazing. But he talks about duty, and there was this one day that he was supposed to be at. He was in Afghanistan, and he was supposed to brief Obama. Obama was stuck at this airport in Afghanistan, wasn't able to fly, and he called. They got an order over. Obama would like a briefing on Afghanistan in 15 minutes. So he was cutting it close. He's like, 15 minutes, and he was in the gym. So he ran back. He got changed, and they had to drive halfway across this base, this big old base. And Obama was over at the airfield, and he was not. He was at the other different part of the base. So they were driving over there, and there was this one young woman, forgive me for that, who was stationed there at the airport. And when they were like, "Yep, we need to get through," she's like, "No." And they're like, "We have a 3-star admiral in this car right here. We need to get through." And the girl said no. And the guy starts screaming and yelling, "We are supposed to be briefing the president. We need to get through." And she's like, "You have not been cleared to enter. I cannot let you through." And then the guy went back to the car. The next level up guy came, started getting on her case. We need to get through. Finally, the admiral came, and he came up and he's like, "Not going to yell at you, but I'm supposed to be briefing the president right now. And we really do need to get through." And she's like, "It's my job to be," he said, "It's my job to be briefing the president right now." And she's like, "And it's my job to man this gate. It is my job to keep people from entering. That was what my orders were. And you are not on the list. And until I get an approval, you cannot get through, sir." And Admiral McRaven was just like upset, but yet at the same time, he was like, "Okay." Went back and sat, and finally, about 5 minutes later, she walked up to the car, and she's like, "You now have permission to enter, sir." So they went in, and he gave the briefing. Obama never asked why he was late, and then they left, and they were driving back. He pulled over, and he said, "Do you know that you kept the president of the United States waiting? You kept all these people waiting. You kept everything, and like, you literally." And she's like, "Yes, sir." And she's looking down at the ground, and then he pulled out this coin that he had, and he gave it to her, and it was for people who stood up to do the right thing and who were exceptional. He's like, "You performed your duty, even in the face of like absolute searing like challenge and like the fear of like absolute destruction of your career by not allowing this admiral through. A 3-star admiral was supposed to see the president, but yet she had been given the order to man that gate, and that's what she did. How am I cultivating that authenticity? I feel like one of the things that is important for me is to try to constantly daily come back to what is my North Star? What is it that I'm supposed to be trying to do? What is it that is my duty? And, like I look at with this podcast, this is my way to share information with my daughter, to create a video record of lessons that I would like to share for her. This is not about me getting millions of listens or downloads or views. This is about me creating digital memories that someday she can go back and watch, and hopefully others can. And if I can keep that perspective, I don't get fazed by my views. I don't get fazed by all the social media. I don't get fazed by everything else. I just keep making memories, and I keep telling stories and sharing lessons that are relevant to me and that I hope someday my kiddo can listen to. I do my Alani's Little World channel with my daughter because I feel like kids need good content. I feel like kids need to be shown something better, and I feel like the content that's out there is borderline toxic. That is out there for these kids to watch, and these are what I feel I have the ability to help with. That is my North Star. That is what I feel like I can be doing, and I do it with my family. Granted, I also have to have money to do that, which is why I have my side hustles, my other jobs, and why I'm trying to learn computer programming so I can have another higher paying day job while I'm building this other stuff. I found this book today, The 10% Entrepreneur, I showed you before we started. And it's like, about how do you start your dream job while you got your day job? That's what I try to do. I figure out what is my duty, and then I just do it the best I can. And I don't tell myself to kind of just deal with these emotional challenges, these days where I don't have inspiration, but I just tell myself that there's something important for me to be doing, and you don't always know what it is. You don't know whose life you're impacting. You don't know whose life you're changing by the little stuff you do. I remember that I've taught for 20 years. I taught a bunch of kids English, but I also try to drop little nuggets of wisdom throughout my career as a teacher. And I have had kids come up and tell me that I was the only person who ever got through to them, whoever gave them a chance. Maybe I don't come up with anything else in my life except for I'm a good dad. I make some videos and I taught some kids. But that probably would be enough, you know? So doesn't mean that I feel good every day. Doesn't mean that I've got it together. But it means that I feel like maybe
No,
I'm the
I hear you
person
there.
standing at that gate, holding back some of the forces of chaos in this world. Got a little heavy there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, man. What I think's really interesting, Sean, just listening back and thinking about some of the things you said before. The example you gave there of soldier on the base and stuff like that. And then the teacher that you talked about before, who educated you in stuff that really blew your mind. And I think you said it was almost to the detriment of his career. He was sort of asked to move on potentially for the fact that he was maybe going a bit wider than he felt or should have done, or people
Yeah.
felt he had in his remit. It really feels like that's maybe impacting your quest now. You talked about creating content for kids that you think brings them real value. And it strikes me that that teacher gave you real value. And similar to the soldier at the gates, he knew what he was there to do, and he felt compelled to do it regardless of how the powers may be viewed him and his role. You know, there was probably lots there, I would guess, who saw him as a maverick, as someone who should get back in line, who should just teach the curriculum and not deviate from it. But he felt there was more to show you. And interestingly, that's what's had the biggest impact on you as well. You've also brought that example of the students you've imparted that wisdom on and have come to you to say, hey, Sean, like, you're the only person who ever gave us that space. So I think you're right there. I think you're tapping into, as you said, your calling. There's a deep rooted value there. I don't know if you know how you define that yet. As you know, I don't know what name you would give that, or whether you've even thought of it that way. But it feels to me like that you feel compelled to live that value and put that value back into the world, and that's what you're doing. And I think it's really hard. I think that some people. So let me rewind. I personally believe now that we get purpose from finding our values, finding what we want to see in this world, and creating that as much as we can. So if we can find out what that is, and then look at the skills that we've been given naturally, what comes easy to us and we can do, then how can we use those to put those values back into the world? And your teacher there did it. You know, he wanted to expand minds. He wanted to set people free with their thinking, and he did that through teaching. But you could do that through writing. You can do that through music and film. You know, it can come through any medium, but that was what drove him. And I think sometimes people's values and their purpose and stuff, you know, they're not going to make them millions. They're not going to be that main income channel into their lives, but they still feel compelled to do it. And I think sometimes people go after the money because, like you said, we've all got bills to pay, we've all got mouths to feed. You know, we need it's a necessary evil, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you're lucky, if you can completely pair them, then more power to you. If it needs to be an element of working to get the money that you need to care for the people that you want to care for, while finding an outlet to convey and give back your values into this world, then I think that's the purpose that everyone should try and seek, in my view. And that's sort of where my head goes when I'm like you, trying to pull this together and bring myself back to sort of ground zero of, right, okay, it's not going great in the moment, but, you know, what am I here to do? Am I doing that? Am I caring for the people I want to care about? Are they safe? Am I giving the values back to this world that I want to see? And if the answer is yes, then I take a bit of peace in that. Doesn't mean it suddenly gets easier, or suddenly the trouble's gone, but it certainly makes the road a bit easier to walk down. And like you said, you know, with Ryan Holiday, the whole Stoic movement, you know, the obstacle is the way. There is, sadly, life is not easy. Everything passes, doesn't it? A good day will pass, a bad day will pass, a good month will pass, a bad month will pass. The only thing that's certain is it will pass, and we'll come back to a point. And, you know, you just got to keep, like you said, your North Star's your purpose, you know, it's your values. And as long as you're putting them out there, you know you're going in the right direction, even if that road's hard at that moment in time. That's how I like to look at it.
How do you go about finding your North Star, or how do you think people should approach that? What are some ways that you think people can go about finding they're this one thing, that thing that is their guiding principle. That's a City Slickers
Yeah,
reference. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. This.
I've seen that movie, but I can't spot the reference. Sorry.
Curly, like so Billy
Um,
Crystal's sitting there going, like, what's the meaning of life? And he's like, this. And Billy Crystal's like, what is this? And that, like, the whole journey, and finally he realizes it's whatever it is for you. Like,
yeah,
you got to find it out for yourself.
yeah, yeah, and that's the big thing I like to work with the guys that I work with, Sean. It's trying to boil down to that. So there's a number of things I like to do with the people I work with, and a lot of it's about. I think a lot of the clues lie in early childhood before expectations were heaped upon us, before rules were heaped upon us, before responsibility was heaped upon us. If you think back to what you did as a child when all that responsibility and pressure wasn't there, that is probably, I think, what you should be striving for now to find real peace in what you're doing. So I like to really talk to people and get them to think about what did they do, what made them happy when they were a child, how would people describe them, what were they doing, what were they saying, and try and boil that down to fond memories and what that memory contains. And it 9 times out of 10 it will contain probably a real strong essence of one of their values or many of their values, and help them draw them out. So that's one route I like to go down. What makes them angry? Because what makes us, I then like to work with people to understand
Mm.
truly angry again is probably our values being violated in some way, shape, or form. Someone displaying a behavior that really goes against what we feel is right. So for me, I really I'm really big on taking responsibility for yourself and your actions. Like, yeah, stuff can happen. People can do bad things to you. People can say bad things to you, but it's on you how you react to that, and it's on you what you do next. And you can either sit there and decide to be a victim. It's a big trait which I do on a regular basis and have to battle with that for me. But there's only one person that can sort that out, and that's me. So, and responsibility has always been a big thing for me. I moved out really young because I wanted that responsibility of managing my own bills and looking after my own household and stuff. I was always really, really after that level of responsibility, but I think freedom and stuff as well. So I always like to delve into that with people as well. Happiness as well. Think of a time when you felt really at peace and happy with the situation, what was happening, because chances are, again, your values were present there, whether you knew it or not. And I think by piecing all this stuff together, you can start to get clear on what it is that to you that's important. And then you ask yourself, how's this showing up for me right now? And I find, as you know, I work with a lot of guys who are hitting or in middle age, and I term that as like second adolescence. I think we lose ourselves on the journey. We go from this child who knows instinctively who they are, what they want to do, where they want to go, how they want to feel, and they know how to go and find it. We then go through this journey of trying to work it out, and we get impacted by others. And I feel middle age is a point where we sort of go, wow, like, I'm not sure who I am anymore. And I think that's part of the journey, is getting back to that. And there's a famous saying, isn't there? Give me a child till 7 and I'll show you the man. Because so much of who we are is built into us in childhood, our beliefs, our values, how we see the world. So, we almost need to get back to that. So that's a long-winded answer, I hope, to your question.
There was this it was a great answer. There was this thing that I noticed. I've taught children for many years, and as I would work with these kids, a couple things became evident. There is an inherent wisdom in the mind of a child, a wisdom in, and also a freedom. a freedom from the same type of fears that many of us have. You'll get a kid that will, when asked to try something new, you'll get a kid when asked to try something new, they just knock it out of the ballpark. I want you to write a story about a person who can fly to the moon. All right, I'd love to do that. I want you to write a story about getting attacked by a ball of stinky cheese. That sounds like a great story to write. If I go up to a couple people and I think this is, again, why I have a hard time at times with LinkedIn is the rigidity. If I went on there and I said, I'm going to tell you how to write a story about a stinky ball of cheese, and I post that on LinkedIn, people are going to be like, this guy, what is he doing? Why would you write that story? But yet that freedom of thought, that freedom to post, to say what you want, to do what you want, to share what you want is powerful. It is powerful to be, to remember that all of this, it doesn't go with us. It doesn't come with you. There will be a time where it is gone. I remember once when I was younger, after my grandparents had passed, I years later found their wedding rings, my dad's mom and dad. And then I looked at my wedding ring and I thought how the care that I place into keeping this safe, the power of the symbol of this, the memories that go into this. And yet someday it will be just a ring in a dish. It will be just a ring in a dish that someone saves and holds on to remember grandpa. That's humbling. And if you can think about it that way and remember that there is a finality to all of this, there is an end point. My friend is right now dealing with the realization that her father is getting sick and passing. He was diagnosed with I can't remember the condition, but it's not a good prognosis. And he's lucky if he's got 2 years left. And she had this dream about him. And it was a really sad dream for her. The dream went like this. She was cleaning out her dad's garage, and he had all of this film, this film that had been purchased, and it had a date of like 2019 expiration date. And she, in the dream, he was like, and I said, do you want to use this film? And he's like, no, I don't need it anymore. You can throw it away. And she was like, he had bought that with all of these ideas that he was going to travel, that he was going to go do these things, that he had these dreams. And when she woke, she realized that it was her, it was a realization that those dreams were never going to happen, that that it was done, like that his journey was done, and that whatever types of dreams, whatever types of visions he still had were not going to happen. And what it makes me realize and try to remember is that, we only have today. I live in a place that everyone rides motorcycles, and I have seen at least 3 people pass, like, from motorcycle accidents here in Vietnam. At least three. And I've seen numerous other accidents. I remember once I made a video blog about it. I was driving out to the ocean with my wife to meet up with my wife and daughter. It was a long motorcycle ride. Long, it was like 7 hours. But we were driving, and it wasn't far, but it's just, you have to be present for this ride. There's trucks, different roads, you got animals crossing. And halfway out, I witnessed an accident. You could hear it. I didn't see it. I heard it. It's just this slamming noise. And I was the first one on the scene. I went running up, and the kid Kid was laying on the ground. He was going the wrong way in traffic, and he and his girlfriend were head on into a truck. They were not in good shape. They obvious head trauma, and I was just like trying to get them stabilized. Like keeping people from moving them around, trying to stabilize the head and neck until someone arrived and could get these people to a hospital, whether that be an ambulance or even just a taxi, because sometimes that's what they have to do here. And quickly I saw this kid, and he was fading. And and I was the one sitting there, and I watched his family came up, and they were just in tears. And I sat with them for 30 minutes until the paramedics arrived. And in that time, the kid passed. You know, and there was nothing anyone could do. And from then on, for the rest of the drive, all that I wanted was to just get back to my wife and daughter, because that ride was the important thing for me, and I was so excited. But then when I realized, at any point in time, did you really live it? Did you do this? Did you really try? I don't know what happens when we pass. Are we going to end up in some type of like, like angelic courtroom? Like, well, let's see what you did with your life, or is it going to be just nothingness? Is it going to be, this higher level, like a video game? You're like, doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, Mr. Trace, insert 25 more sentences. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I tend to believe that if I were to look back on my life, and I had that split second to kind of sit there and look back, I want to be able to say I tried. I really tried. And what it tried to do what? Tried to make an impact in my own life, tried to live, and tried not to be afraid. And dare to live, dare to love, dare to try, dare to care. I mean, those are the things that I think are important to me. And dare not to live just a blah experience. And blah doesn't mean blah could be, you're going and doing whatever that's wild and things, but maybe you're not really living. There's this idea that you have, I'm not saying that everyone has to be like, oh, chill. I'm not saying like you can be going and doing something wild and crazy, but if you are really enjoying it, you can be living on a farm, give everything up with your corporate lifestyle and go live on a farm. And that could be you're really living it. It depends on what it is for you, but I think that each of us has our own path. And I was studying medicine, and there was one day in medical school where I realized, I was like, I'm not supposed to be a doctor. This is not it. This is not it for me. This is not my path. And I dropped out, much to the chagrin of my family. But, I felt like it was the right thing for me, because if I could have literally, you could do anything for money and know that I was going to be okay financially, it would be this, and making videos for my daughter's channel and doing music with my wife. That would be what I would do, like literally. And I would absolutely passionately love it. So I think the answer for me is find a way to do that. Whether it be
which is what you
it's
do.
my 10%, find a way to do it.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing from everything I've seen. But, as you're finding, and as I find with my quest to get my business off the ground and keep it going, is there's going to be tough times in there, even when you're, well, let's look at it this way. You've just said that ultimately that's what you want to do, and you'd be happy with that. but that is what you are doing.
Yeah.
So, why would you not be happy with that? And, it's because even when you've got everything that you need, you can still have moments that just don't feel great, and that's fine. And it's the reality of the world, sadly. That even when you get to the point that you've thought of or worked out forever, it's just a point, and you move on. And as you were saying before, it's so true. You can have all the money in the world, and you can be unhappy. You can have no money in the world and be the happiest person in the world. It's not necessarily about that. It's about what you want, isn't it? And as you said, it's about finding what you want, and that might be nothing. It might be a huge amount. It's really down to you. But my only other thought I had then coming out as well, I had loads of thoughts, but I think we sort of come into this world and go through childhood with not a lot built up and built up over time of imagination and raw instinct. And I think it just gets him as jobs come in and parenthood comes in and the seriousness of life comes in. And I think I'm on this journey now, which is like, I think I need to get back to that simplicity. I think I need to start pulling those layers off. And I think I've started that journey. But I think there's tons more that needs to come off because it's not important. And just made me think of one exercise I also really like to work on with people, Sean. I don't know, you probably have done it, but it's a great one. Is there's two ways I do it. There's either if I'm dealing with a parent, I like to ask them to write a letter to one of their children, describing how they live their life. So if you had to give them a letter that they read, when you weren't there anymore, what would you want that letter to tell that child about how you lived your life? And similar to that is, it gets called a lot of things, but a common one is the rocking chair test. So imagine, you're in your real old age. You probably know that there's not a lot of time left, and you're sat in a rocking chair and you're thinking back of your life. Like, what do you want to know you've been or done, said? And I bet it's not money in the bank. I bet it's you've helped people along the way. You've stood up for what you believed, even when maybe that was hard to do. You were kind. It'll be things that are not materialistic in a way. And they're the things that we've all got the ability to be every single day. So if you can attune to those, then, you can be exactly who you want to be right now and be on this journey to becoming better on that. And it's tough, but that's why it's so awesome at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I could be writing a letter to my daughter about how she can handle these times, when she gets to that point in her life where she starts dealing with those doldrums, I would say this: they don't last, but you do. The tough times don't last, but you do. And just remember that if you want to save $1 million or £1 million for you, whatever, a million, a euro, you start off with one unit at a time. And that you do not have to try to crush it every time. You have to keep taking steps. And sometimes those steps lead in circles. Sometimes those steps force you to sit down, but you keep standing up. I trained jujitsu and judo and Muay Thai, and I had a great teacher early in my training who always would tell me, you get tired in the middle of training and you sit down and you're slumped down. And my teacher would always tell us this: if you can stand up, you stand up. And I was like, well, what's the importance of that? And he's like, because you know that no one can ever get you down. If you have the power to stand, you stand. Even if you are tired, do you have the ability to stand? Yes, I can still stand up. then you stand. Well, I'm tired. I just, got thrown on the floor 50 times. I want to sit and rest. Do you have the ability to stand? Yes, sir. Then you stand. And it was just about the principle of not letting anything get you down. And it was like, and I think you could change that into, do you have the ability to smile? Yes. Then smile. Do you have the ability to stay positive? Yes. Then make that a choice. You know, and that's what I like about, like, I haven't read this book yet, The 10% Entrepreneur. But the idea of, like, you can move toward your dreams in increments, and not worry about, like, I'm not making progress. I could be doing it better. There was someone on LinkedIn today, and the girl's like, in 2 weeks, I posted on LinkedIn and I got $250,000 invested in my. That is awesome. And I am not going to rain on her parade. I am proud of her. I am proud that she was able to secure that financing. I am proud of the person who can get millions in financing. I am proud of the person who got $10 today, but they were able to set aside and go, I'm going to use this to buy some paper and a new pen and write down ideas for what I want to do with my life. All of these are wins, and that it doesn't matter if it's big or small. Give yourself credit for standing up today. Give yourself credit for waking up today.